a $57 million shortfall in the base budget of this university as of July 1st. That's 27% of our budget. These are staggering numbers to have endured in a very short period of time. In fact, it's only because of the hard work of all of you. Because I know there are people who are doing two jobs. I know there are faculty who are picking up extra load. I know that we have colleagues who aren't with us today because we had to cut so many positions, well over 100 faculty positions now, probably moving into 300 staff positions over the past few years just to get to where we are today while trying to maintain the service levels of this institution. To get to where we are has taken heroic measures. It's taken hard work, and it's taken your dedication and support. And I can't thank you enough for what you've done to make a difference so that we can continue to serve the students of Nevada who are coming back to this institution in record numbers because this is their refuge from bad economic times, and it's their hope for a better economic future. So I'm going to start today by saying these cuts are devastating. They are much worse than the straw that broke the camel's back. If we face this level of budget reduction, we will be unable to maintain the current service levels, and we will be unable to keep all the structure that we have built. The current cut level could result in the loss of 12 departments, or to put that into context, up to 2 significant colleges at this university, with the attendant loss of about 2,300 students. And that's if we take the cuts in the way that does the least harm. But when you cut 2,300 students, you don't just lose those students, you also lose the revenue flow attached to those students, which creates an additional hole, which creates additional loss. I don't know how we can pretend that we are defending any educational quality, any component of our mission, or a belief that we serve the students of our state if we take cuts like this at the universities. But here's what I have to tell you. In the past couple weeks, I will say that we have found a way to work together in ways that I believe are extraordinary. The people on this stage are all committed to helping us ameliorate, mitigate, and survive the fiscal challenges that this state faces. Our students have been terrific. I'm meeting with them at least weekly, if not more. Our faculty senate, well, John and I are just on, we're phone buddies every morning. Jerry, of course, is in my office about every other day with another scheme to try to lighten the load and make the hit more survivable. And I'm very happy to say that the Council of Presidents, the Nevada System of Higher Education represented here today by Dan Clage, and the Board of Regents represented here by Regent Kevin Page, are really working hard together. But what we have to do is to make sure that the campuses alone are not asked to bear this level of cut. Our state needs to be all in. Our state needs to do everything that it can to mitigate the level of cut, to search for new revenue streams, to honor the commitments that we made when we accepted ERA stabilization funding to make sure that education would be strong in this state despite our bad economic times, and to make sure that we have managed as best we can through a very, very difficult fiscal situation. Our campuses also can't be expected to make deep and painful cuts, lest we in turn ask our Chancellor and the Nevada system of higher education to similarly make very, very difficult decisions. Finally, I want to say to you, we will work as best we know how together to try to get ourselves past this. But we can't do it without your help. And I know someone's going to say, what can we do? I will tell you, there's never been a better time to make sure that our friends, the people in this city who depend on our graduates, our legislators, our governor, and everyone else who has the ability to influence the fate and future of higher education in this state hears from you that this is a critical moment in our history. And that this is not the time to recklessly endanger the future of our university for short-term gain. This is the time for creative leaders to to preserve the integrity of our system and the future of our state. I'll ask all of you to help. I'll ask all of you to come forward with your best suggestions. I will promise that as we review programs, as we're doing currently through the JET process, working with Faculty Senate and with leadership, that we will consult and that we will maintain a core of excellence, the core of excellence of this university, as best we can, but that will mean we make hard decisions. We will work to preserve this environment. We will work to preserve the jobs that we need to get our mission accomplished. And we will work as best we can together and hopefully care for and support each other. Because right now is a time when we could easily fall apart. I ask all of you to take care of each other, to make sure you're communicating with us, and to help so that we can get the best result for everyone and for our students possible out of what is a very dire situation. Now, I'm not the only one on the stage. I think it's really important that you hear from our Chancellor about his assessment of this cut in the future. And I think it's important that you hear from a representative of our Board of Regents about their dedication to help us ameliorate this very, very difficult challenge. And so I ask Dan Plach if he'll please come up and say a few words.
Is this on? That was a great warm-up speech. I don't know how close to this mic I have to be. If closer? That close? Okay. If you can't hear me, somebody yell at me or throw something. Try not to hit me, please. Neal invited me over here this afternoon, and I'm pleased to be here. And I had intended to come here to support your president, and quite frankly, had not intended to speak. So excuse me if I ramble. And excuse me if I get pretty emotional. I'm sitting here looking at my good friend Carol. Neal is the 5th president of this university that I've worked with over more than 25 years, and I have seen this campus grow from the small little campus that we had here on Maryland Parkway to the incredible campus that you have today. And it breaks my heart that we're sitting here talking about budget cuts that could tear it down. Too many people have given too much to make this campus what it is for us to be here about what we're here about today, and it kills me. I have tremendous faith in your president and in his team to do the right thing by UNLV, and so I won't try to be president of UNLV. clearly incompetent for that job. But let me give you my perspective of this. We're all here as part of the rebel family today, but we've got a big problem as Nevadans. Kind of mark January 22nd on your calendar, which is the day the Economic Forum is going to meet and is going to let us know the size of the magnitude of the budget hole we have here in Nevada. I believe that day is a game changer for this state, and it will let us know the magnitude of the cuts that we are going to endure, and I'm not expecting that to be a pretty day. But Nevada has to wake up at some point to understand that our institutions of higher education, this university, our state college, our community colleges, we're the answer, not the problem. We are changing here in Nevada from our service industry to a knowledge-based economy. And if UNLV doesn't lead us out of it, who will? If Nevada State and CSN don't lead us out of this, who will? And if we sell our future out and destroy our institutions to get through the next 18 months, what have we done to our children and our grandchildren and to this city? This is the most impatient city I have ever seen in my life. This is a city, I've got to tell you, you all know my zip code's in Reno, so no surprise about that. But this city has more energy and drive than any city I've ever seen in the world. You come down here and people don't want to hear no. People don't want to hear what they can't do. And people want it done now. And I can't believe that we're going to give up on this institution and this state and our future in this crisis. I think this is the time when we bind together. I think this is the time, quite frankly, we have to be outraged as Nevadans. I understand I'm getting emotional here, but I am outraged that we are thinking about throwing away our future. And I can't believe every single person in the state. Now, I want to tell you, I'm a realist as well. And I started out talking about the 22nd of January, and we're going to hear some ugly numbers on that day. And if anyone in here thinks that the system or UNLV or any college in our system is coming out of this unscathed, let's get rid of that thought right now. There will be pain, and there will be very, very difficult decisions that your president and his solid team will lead you through. But we have got to make sure that we manage that as a state. And that's what I hope we pull together and do. We can work through the pain of the next 18 months, 2 years, whatever it is, but I don't want to be looking myself in the eye 2 or 3 years from now and understand that I sold out the future of this state for a generation. And quite frankly, I've got to tell you, I think that's what the stakes are. So Neal asked you what you could do. First of all, participate in this process. Stand up for your institution, stand up for your school, stand up for this great university. And number two, we're in an election year, folks. And let's make sure that the people who decide our fate understand that we are very, very serious about protecting higher education in this state and protecting this institution in particular. So thanks for your time, thanks for your passion, unbelievable attendance, and I apologize if I went over the top up front.
Thank you, Dan, for those passionate words. Like the Chancellor today, I was going to be a supporter here, and they asked me to say a few words, and I couldn't agree with the Chancellor more. This needs to be a time for call for action, okay? I watch the markets for a living, so those numbers on the 22nd are not going to be good, and that's not going to be anything new to any of us. I mean, these markets back in February or March of this year, watching the stock market when the Dow was at 6,500, it looked like we were going into a depression. If I told anyone at that period that at the end of the year we'd be at 10,500 in the Dow, They look at you like you're crazy. Didn't look like we were going to be anywhere near there in 5 years. Okay, so we've had a recovery. Unfortunately, though, it's going to take Nevada, and southern Nevada in particular, quite a while to come out behind the national economy. So we have to be realist on that. So we know that, so these numbers are going to come in. But it's a time for call for action because, as the Chancellor said, at the end of the day, it's easy to cut higher education because even though you're all here today, you're all pretty quiet. And it's time to say, let's take it up a couple of notches, okay? Because if you think about it, they came in and said, we're going to cut at 22%, and everyone's up in arms. But you take 14% and 8%, you're at 22. And Dan's right. I mean, some of this stuff we will not recover. So it's time to say, election year, right on. But I don't know how many people in the room, maybe 400 or 500 people and their families. There's 90,000 alums, 60,000 living in southern Nevada. Let's now write every legislature. Let's call them now. Let's not wait. Let's not after the fact, and let's not complain after the fact when they cut it. This is the time to do it. They're all out there. They're raising money. They're looking for endorsements. We've got the governor that's looking for, and all the other candidates. Let's hear from southern Nevada. Let's hear from UNLV. They'll be so sick of hearing about UNLV, they'll cut anything but UNLV, okay? At the end of the day, everyone is looking for jobs. How are you going to get jobs? Education means jobs. Let's get the students. They were fired up earlier in the year, and I know they will be again. This is the time. Let's not wait till the numbers come out. They're going to be bad. We know that. Let's be realist. Let's do it now. So I know from a board perspective, we want to cut nothing. We want these institutions to continue to grow. But at the end of the day, the numbers are the numbers. And so we're going to do anything we can. So I know, speaking on behalf of the board, anything we can do, call us. We're really, really concerned with what's going on. We like to get any input that we can. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Kevin. At this time, I know that there's a lot of individual concerns. I've heard from many people. I've received a number of emails. What's next? What do we do? We even had on our budget website a number of very good questions. I don't anticipate that I'll try to answer all of the budget website questions immediately. I will tell you that there'll be any number of concrete actions that have to roll forward. We've started some. We had somewhere in the order of 12 interim or executive positions that were scheduled for search sometime in the near future. I've put all but one of those on hold and frozen those lines effective yesterday. We will look right now very, very hard at whether we need to put any more of those on because it could actually interrupt operations. I will tell you that there's only about 45 positions being searched for in this entire university, which is a staggeringly small number comparable to the number of positions that's being sought in some of our smaller community colleges. I will have to tell you that until I am certain that we have a proper budget, I don't know if we can guarantee that we will be able to continue those searches. And I'll also tell you that those searches were only the ones that rose to the top because they were nearly emergency searches, which means if we cease searching, we lose functions. Finally, will we consider future rounds of the VSIP or other types of mechanisms to allow people to leave the university early? As conditions permit, we may indeed have to consider whether there'll be another round of those forms of, I won't call them buyouts, but voluntary separation. So there are a lot of different issues on the table. I would now like to ask if Dave Tonelli would go through the audience. We'll be happy to entertain questions. You can direct them to whoever you feel you need to up here on the podium. And we'd like to make sure that you have a chance to have a say, to let us know what you're thinking in this situation.
Okay, I think the easiest way to do this is just a show of hands here. I'm going to start on this side. If you are possibly able to make your way to an aisle, that would be easier. But I'm going to walk straight down the center first and see who we have that has a question for us. Anybody?
Yes, I want to know, I know we have a process to cut programs in place. Could you just hit a few of the high points of what the criteria are for which programs might be cut and which not?
I'd be happy to, and I'd be also happy to have John Filler, our Faculty Senate Chair, discuss this further. There's currently a joint evaluation team that is reviewing proposals. Let's try to talk first about the intent, because criterion is a slippery slope and there are many of them. The intent of this process is for us not to cut programs, but it's to preserve the integrity of the high quality programs that the university has. So we are here to preserve the core of excellence that you've worked so hard to build over the last 50 years. In doing so, if a program does not generate revenues, does not support students in large numbers, has very, very high costs, doesn't have high academic standards, then that would be a program that one could consider is not contributing to our core mission and our values deeply. And that program could be lost in this exercise. A first round of the exercise has occurred, and I understand that I will get the results of that before the forum on the 22nd. I believe that another round of that exercise must occur in which we consider, in a more directed way, more significant cuts.
This side of the room, one in the back.
Hi, I'm going to speak up for the classified staff. We have classified staff people who cut their medications in half. We have them who cannot afford to eat meat. We have some of these classified people who are living out of their cars because of the cuts to the state employees. Who at the university level is fighting for classified staff up in the legislature?
That's a great question. I want to tell you that nobody on this stage feels that classified staff should have any more furlough days, and in fact, a high priority for all of us on this campus would be to return those days. We recognize that classified staff has been the most impacted by the current set of cuts that we have, and I would just tell you I've heard of a number of wonderful stories on department by department basis of gestures of support, but we will certainly do everything we can to make sure that classified staff do not suffer disproportionately in this current crisis. I believe that you gave more, you gave ahead of everyone else, and I hope all of us in this audience would honor that sacrifice and vow to not extend it or make it worse or deeper.
Again, please raise your hand if you have a question. I'm in the back of the room moving forward, looking. One over here.
I'm actually a graduate student in a small program, and so I want to know, like, if a program's eliminated for the students who are already enrolled, like I've been in my program for 3 years, what's going to happen to them? Can they finish their degree? Like, what are you looking at in terms of students who are
First of all, for any program to be eliminated, it requires a board action. And if the board does have that action, one of the general caveats that's attached to that is that students who are currently enrolled in the program are allowed to complete within reason. I will tell you it's not our intention to terminate students' participation in any program that they're currently involved in. I will also tell you that that means that it doesn't create instant fiscal relief for the university. So the process that we're indulged in right now needs to be a slow, steady, and deliberate process that takes into mind the people who are currently in programs and the faculty and staff who are in those programs.
I'll tell you what, I'll ask a question we had from the website, and it had to do with employee buyout programs, et cetera. Are those going to come up again? What do we know about furloughs, et cetera?
I'm going to turn it over to Jerry to address that.
I think what Neal said earlier is that what we're currently looking at, and that is depending upon what comes out next week and how this dust settles on what our final reduction might be, we are evaluating whether or not we'll roll out another voluntary separation incentive program. I don't know the schedule on it, but potentially even this spring for implementation potentially July 1st. And so we're looking at that as a potential option there. The last time we had this program, I think depended upon the department whether or not they saw that as beneficial. I think in general we thought that the individuals who participated in the program saw it as beneficial, and overall in general the institution benefited, and we were able to actually move some people into those positions that were vacated, and therefore kept saving the individual employees that are in filled positions. So I think that's something we're looking at right now. HR has already, to be honest, drafted some documents both for the professional and faculty and the state classified. And so no final decision has been made on that yet, but I've had some discussions with Neal about that and the other cabinet members, and so it is on the table for discussion in the very near future.
Okay, and let me go with one more that we had come in through the website, and then I'll work over to the hand that's up on this side of the room. If I can put the Chancellor on the spot, Dan, the question was, what are you doing to make the case to the governor?
Thanks for the softball. I think it's, wow. See, glib Dan give an answer. I think the answer, I've got to tell you, I speak to the governor's staff a lot. I have offered suggestions on how the governor can manage through this process. I think as an individual, and I got to tell you, Dave, I'm not going to try and dodge this question. I don't get a lot of calls from the governor, so if you want that as part of your answer, that's part of your answer. But I have offered written suggestions on where my staff thinks there are funds available to assist in managing through this process. I have made it very clear that I think an essential point of leadership here is to manage for the greater good of the state of Nevada rather than any particular ideology. And I think there's a cash flow issue here that we need to put forward and can be helpful in managing here. We can't create money, but you know, I'll tell you what, I have given up a lot of sleeping in this lifetime, and I will talk to the governor, I will talk to faculty, I'll talk to people in the line at the grocery store. This is more than the governor and 63 people who will make our decision, although that's ultimately the case. And I guess I would say I'm talking to everybody who is interested in the future of the state, and I hope you do too, because this is not about the chancellor or the president or anyone else. This is about all of us. And this is a time for all of us to get off the sidelines. And if you don't think that's the case, don't come talking to us about the result. This has got to be a team effort here, folks. Kind of that was a weak answer. Carol's going to give me a follow-up here.
Follow up right on that, because I've got one right over here. Okay.
What about new construction projects and the new student hire positions that were started last semester?
It's one for Neal, probably.
Well, let me talk about new construction, and I'll give it to Neal on new student hires, which is not in my bailiwick. Typically, we fund new construction in this state out of a combination of surplus dollars and bonding capacity. And so I don't have to talk to you a lot about surplus dollars, I guess. And you've all seen the reports on the reduction in property taxes, which has stretched our bonding capacity to just about zero. So I think we will be struggling mightily to get any new construction, certainly in this coming biennium. And it's difficult for me to look beyond that. But I personally do not see any new construction in this next biennium at all.
couple comments. I think what you will still see around campus, because we received funding last legislative session for some major repair and maintenance on campus. So roofs, other things, systems like that, you'll continue to see some projects like that. There may be, it's always the potential that there's donor funds for capital construction. We've been fairly successful on campus on projects like that if donors step forward. But other than that, as the Chancellor said, I wouldn't expect any major construction projects that you'll see in the near future on the campus, as you've been used to over the last decade or more, where there were a lot of projects coming out of the ground every year. I don't think we'll see that for a while in the near future, especially if it's state funded. I think, again, if there were donor funds, we still have are working through a relationship with a hotel conference center that may want to build something on campus that hopefully will be a financial benefit to us, but that's their money, not ours. So there may be some things like that, but very little in the way of state or institutional funded major projects. Did that answer your question? Or? Student Services building, is that the one you're talking about? Or I'm not sure I know what those projects were. We built an addition to the Student Services, and there was some renovation, in particular in the old Student Services facility there, but I can get with you to understand maybe the particular projects that you're talking about, but it's not ringing a bell with me right now. I'm sorry. You may be talking about some of the integrate positions that we brought in, and many of you know that there's a new student administrative system that we're trying to bring up. In fact, this fall is the go-live date for students enrolled in all those systems. I don't know for a fact, but it could be some activities related to those individuals that we brought in to help us successfully implement that program. But again, I'd have to apologize. I'm not sure I'm tracking exactly what building and what facilities, but I'll try to follow up.
Okay, I'll tell you what, we're going to move on to a different question. We're right up in front here with Dr. Carol Harder.
Thank you. If you, Dan and Neal, if you'll just indulge me 1 minute to just say something in preface to the question. I hate people who make speeches and then ask questions, but I just want to recap a little bit of history as I remember it over these 15 years and then ask a question as a result. During the heyday, I now look back on my 11 years as having been rich with growth, money, buildings, programs. It was fantastic. It didn't always feel that way at the time, but we sure had a great time building the university and adding new programs and so forth. The system also added several pieces that were not there previously, several of which they were there, but they didn't receive state funding. They now do. One whole new state college. There have been new units, new combinations that were not there, say, 20 years ago. It seems to me, one of the great dangers in continuously doing horizontal cuts and tweaking everything across the board is that you weaken every unit, every institution, every college, every program, every faculty member, where vertical cuts or combinations of activities that could save, especially on administrative costs and even on some redundant faculty costs, could perhaps be a far more helpful solution at this point, and could do really not so much damage. There'd be a lot of pride involved in units that might get combined with other units, but in terms of system responses, and to me this has to be a chancellor regent-led kind of activity, thinking about going vertically, combining some units that have some natural affiliations that could, I think, quite quickly save on significant administrative costs particularly. Are those conversations on the table now? Can they be? And can some of us help put them there at the cost of our life and well-being? Because I put them there 10 years ago when we had other budget problems and almost got killed. So I guess I'm just trying to get to, are those conversations, as serious as they are, now going to be on the table?
Yes. Let me tell you the answer. A lawyer can never say yes. Come on. But let me tell you, Carol, and all of you gathered here, the way I look at that and some of the complexities of the question you've asked. I believe that we are going into a period of decision making that forces that answer to be yes. Nothing can be off the table. Nothing can be off the table. We have grown in ways that are highly efficient, and we have grown in ways that are of questionable efficiency in all our processes, whether those be academic, business, or otherwise. And I think every single of those decisions need to be looked at and analyzed, because what we have to do is, as the President said in starting, protect the integrity of our institutions and the students we serve. That's got to be the guidepost. What concerns me as we get into these cuts as much as anything is the unbelievable catch-22 we have here. As educators and as a system, you and we have the absolute obligation to allow everyone who enrolls in this institution or any institution in the system to achieve the maximum level of competence that that person can. Let everyone grow to his or her maximum capabilities and contribute to the state. By what we're doing, we're changing that paradigm. We are cutting out whole populations that in this city particularly are already underserved. We will be disproportionately affecting low-income Nevadans. We will be disproportionately affecting underrepresented and populations of color. Those are the people that we are appointed and elected and you are hired to serve. And we're going to be disproportionately affecting them. When I know that, I have to answer your question yes. Because I have to say that every dollar that goes to serve a student, to keep a critical faculty member on staff, has got to be saved for that mission. There's just no choice.
And we're over on the left side now. Rainer?
How likely or unlikely is financial exigency? Is it at all possible? Or should we not worry about it?
Last option, but I think you should worry about it.
Okay, and one more from over here.
Hi, Lois Humboldt, Chair of Women's Studies, and hi. My question is, how is whatever happens going to affect UNLV or system-wide? In other words, we already have a system in which campuses get different amounts of money. It's not allocated equitably. Are we going to have cuts that will be allocated to make the inequalities even worse, is basically my question.
I think either Dan or I could actually address that. At the current moment, the exercise is 8% across the board cuts to each campus. It hurts everybody to the tune of 8%. Some campuses did not have the cuts that we endured prior to this exercise. Thus, the cumulative impact on, frankly, UNR and UNLV are larger than they are for most of the other components of this campus, and they're significantly larger. And I'll just say to Dan and others, to selectively incapacitate the two major institutions of the state certainly can't be good business, and I'm sure Dan would agree with us. However, we were vulnerable to the first round of cuts in a disproportionate way. Now let me back up. I have asked, and I think you heard me ask Dan and the Board of Regents, and I've appealed to our state and legislators to do everything they can to consider sharing that pain before they ask us to be in. And I believe that those cuts will not necessarily hit proportionately. Certainly, if our chancellor discusses cutting back on a campus, that is not a proportional cut. So what we're saying is, as a first pass approximation, we were asked to do this exercise. I will tell you, I don't believe it's a viable exercise. It helps us to understand where we are. Now the next thing has to happen. And so that's my thought, is that we should not be at a place where we're looking at, as Carol said, horizontal across-the-board cuts, which weaken everybody and cause us to fail in our mission across the system. We have to consider other solutions and paradigms which involve selective cuts in a vertical fashion if we're going to preserve opportunities and access for our students. Dan, you can respond as well if you'd like.
That was a really good answer. Let me just add a couple of things. If this were a flat or even two-dimensional discussion we're having, I'd feel a whole lot better about it. But it's not. And you bring up one aspect. We have equity issues. We've got formula issues. We've got tuition and fee issues. We've got faculty issues. I mean, this is kind of one of those where you pull the string out on one side and you lose it on the other. So I can tell you for absolutely certain I'm considering that. It's one of the many considerations that go into this discussion. I would like to sit here and tell you there is a good solution. There is not a good solution here. We are looking for the best solution for Nevada and the students of Nevada and the future of Nevada. But it's not going to be good, and it's not going to fall within anybody's definition of good, and certainly not within my definition of acceptable.
Okay, we're over. You want to take the one in front, or I'm over toward the right? Can the front? Okay, we'll come back up.
Yeah. I'm hearing from the panel that you want us, as faculty members and students, to take political action, to raise our voices, write our legislators, and speak loudly in our communities in support of higher education. Pardon me, but I'm very vague on what positions you are asking us to take. Can you, as an administration, provide us with a very succinct and effective set of bullet points, 5 or 6 or 7 major points that we can then use in our correspondence with our legislators, in our discussions with members of the press, and in our advocacy in our community?
The answer is yes, and not now. Here's why. We don't have a number. We won't have a number till January 22nd. And even from that number, we will not be clear what the state will do, what our legislators will do, and what our governor will do with that number to ameliorate it. So at least at a first approximation, we need a number. Our campus needs a number. It's very, very hard to know how deep the cuts will go, how critically they will affect our programs and our students. That said, there are calls to action right now, today. I certainly will make it clear to any candidate for office that for my support, they must have the continuity of strong higher education in this state as a top priority, particularly considering the challenges that have gone on. I believe our students have been discussing a similar pledge. Will our gubernatorial candidates take not the no tax pledge, but will they take an education pledge? So one thing we all have to do is we all have to insist that the people who represent us in office care about higher education. The second thing I believe that you can do now is to let your legislators know that further cuts to higher education are unacceptable. There's two very concrete starting points for anybody in this audience. Now, to go beyond that at this time and talk specifics of a plan that doesn't yet have numbers, that doesn't yet have a response from the state or from the system, which are hard and challenging conversations that I'm sure will begin shortly, is very difficult for me. So I'm going to say we will keep you posted. We will make sure the budget website is up to date, and I will be happy to personally offer advice on how this campus can work together to ameliorate the impact of these cuts. I suppose at some point Dan's going to get out the hook and tell me that I'm not allowed to have certain kinds of political positions, but the truth is I owe you, and I owe this every single employee and student in this university, at least the best assessment we know how to come up with for how to combat something that we believe is ultimately pernicious for the health of this state. So I've got 2 action items, more to come.
And let's go back up to the front of the room.
Hello, is this on? Yeah. I think I know the answer to this question, and I hope I know the answer to it, but in these situations, the sacred cow always seems to be athletics. And I know we're getting into soft money territory here, but to what extent is athletics involved in what we've been talking about today?
First, I'd like to introduce our new athletic director, Jim Livengood. Welcome. We're happy to have you here. We're cutting your budget. You need to understand that the athletics program is in fact involved. The cuts that we are facing are proportionately at this current time shared with athletics. You also need to understand that athletics is primarily run from non-state dollars, not from state dollars. Thus, they have recourse to revenue streams, which I'm sure our energetic new athletic director will be increasing momentarily to make sure that those programs continue. But athletics is definitely going to experience cuts at the magnitude that our institution will be experiencing.
Okay, I'm. Whoop. Can we bring the other handheld on the stage?
Okay. Hey, I wanted to follow up with the gentleman that asked about the bullet points. That's great. We don't need bullet points right now. Just what's in your heart. Talk to the legislators. Talk to your neighbors. Tell them all the great things that UNLV has done. Why cutting education doesn't make sense. You know, the numbers don't matter at this point. We just have to be passionate about it. We're rebels. Let's be rebels. Let's shake some trees out there and make some noise. They're going to hear so much noise coming from Maryland Parkway, they're going to be sick of hearing from us. Call everyone. Just, there's so many, this place is so fantastic. There's so many great things that have happened. We don't want to throw it all away. Just keep calling, keep bugging people, and we'll be the biggest pains there are.
Regent Page is energized and passionate, can you tell? Okay, I'm toward the back. The website, by the way, that keeps getting mentioned, it's right off our homepage. It's unlv.edu/budget, and that's where all the information will be. It's where you can ask additional questions, etc. We're here in the back.
Hey, this question is for President Smatresk and anyone else who can address it. One of the things that seems to also take up a bit of budget would be student on-campus jobs and scholarships and grants. What I was wondering is, are those potentially on the table for being put in the cuts along with the departments, and at what point in the priority list do they fall?
great question, and I want to first say you're talking about several different pots of money. Some of the student jobs that are created on campus are through federal programs, and those programs will continue as long as federal money comes into those programs. I have already, we were trying hard last year to actually give our graduate students a slightly more competitive salary, and I will tell you, they deserve it. Okay? I'll say that again. They deserve a more competitive salary. I apologetically had to say we couldn't do it, and of course we can't do it at this time. I would not anticipate that levels of funding to graduate students would be reduced. In very serious budget situations, the number of graduate students we fund could be reduced as far as GA or GR lines go. As far as scholarship support goes, one thing that I'm very proud that all of the components in this system do is that we try to make sure that an amount of money is set aside out of the tuition revenues that we receive for scholarship support and for merit or need-based aid. I am personally working hard with donors to increase the amount of need-based aid to meritorious scholars. Our Engelstadt Scholarship is a good example. And I will say to you, we will not disproportionately cut any of the need-based programs or aid programs that we already have established. I will point out that if we have 2,300 students less, there would mandatorily be less total aid available, but it would scale with the level of cuts that the students received. So the last thing we want to do, recognizing that this is very tough times economically for our students, is to reduce the level of financial support that's available to them, because we want good students to have access to an education that can change their life.
All right. Jerry?
One comment there too. Again, the projections going forward are more difficult to make, but let's look at what's happened last biennium and this biennium. One of the few areas that has increased budget is scholarship, student financial aid. So even in the times when we were cutting the budgets in all other areas, the institution made a commitment to increase financial aid for students. And so, again, that doesn't tell you what's going to happen in the future, but it does show the high priority it's been, even at times when we've cut other budgets.
Thank you. I'm still in the back, and then I'm going to come up the center aisle for a few more questions.
How you doing? My name is John Goldman. I represent an undergraduate. I'm involved in CSUN as Director of Campus Life, as well as other committees around campus and athletics. And from South Jersey, I haven't taken Geography 101, so I don't know exactly how many miles, but I don't plan on going back to the East Coast regardless of the budget cuts. My main question to ask, and it might be repetitive, but I want everybody in the room to hear it so that they can hold the students responsible, is what directly and in as plain English and as you can be, what do students need to do? Now, you mentioned that we made that big bang about a year ago or whenever that was. Do we do that again? And President Cronus, if you have talked before with this, what do students directly need to do to get on their feet and make some noise to make something happen? And if the answer and question is spoken in this room, then everybody in here can hold the students responsible to make those moves. So forever you good-looking ladies and gentlemen on stage would like to answer that, I'd be more than happy to hear it. Thank you.
Thank you, John. I don't want you to go back to the East Coast, so we want to keep you here. We as students are going to have to step up like we did last year tenfold. We have to be respectful, but we're going to have to showcase that we care, that we are paying into the system, that we're taxpayers also. And I think through coordination with knowing what these numbers are going to be, knowing what the stage is set for us as far as what we're going to be facing in these next couple of months, whether it be reductions or additional costs incurred upon students, lack of scholarships, or whatever else may happen, we're going to have to be coordinated about it and show in strong numbers, in visible numbers, in loud and fired up numbers that we're going to be here and we're going to be watching, and that we're going to be demanding that we are supported and that we continue to have a system that we can be proud of and have an education that we can then contribute back to our colleagues and to the rest of society. So we're going to have to be visible, and we're going to have all sorts of ways of doing that in the next couple of weeks. We have to. Our future's at stake.
All right, one or two more questions if we have them. I'm coming up the center. Any hands? I'm looking. Close. So I see one up front. Higher. Hang on, we got to be able to hear you in the back too. So.
I'm curious about the timeline once you do get these numbers, what we can expect in a decision process at the legislature and then through our decision process, and then when that eventually will trickle down to staff.
I think things are going to move pretty quickly. You know, we've heard it a few times today. We're going to hear some economic information on the 22nd of January. That's going to show revenue shortfalls for this year and larger revenue shortfalls for next year. I think if any indication of what we've seen from the governor can be taken at face, he intends to impose cuts this fiscal year. The director of the Department of Administration has indicated that he has asked us to consider cuts as early as the 1st of March of this year. There undoubtedly will be some kind of special session or sessions this spring at dates as of yet unannounced, but probably late February, early March. So we're going to be moving very, very quickly. Mr. President?
I think we can take one last question, and then I'm going to wrap it up.
Coming around. And if the platform party could hang around a second when we are done, there's a few more reporter questions over this way.
Hi, my name is Elora Pack. I'm the HR Systems Manager here at UNLV. I'm also a graduate here, 1990 BSBA. I am curious how what these vertical cuts will affect our accreditation meetings in the first week in April. A lot of us have been working really hard to make sure we provide very significant numbers and process we've been going through to make sure that we show a good face. But how are these vertical cuts going to affect our accreditation?
Bowers isn't here. He's our the leader as the chief academic officer of the accreditation attempts right now. I shouldn't say attempts, should I? Effort. I couldn't have asked for an accreditation visit at a less propitious time. I will also tell you that I believe that our campus will be as united and as together as a campus can possibly be in showing both shared governance, a commitment to our students, and a commitment to the faculty and staff who are here to help preserve their jobs, to help make commitments that we will be able to survive as a campus and maintain that core of excellence going forward into the future. There isn't an accreditation agency in the country that isn't dealing with universities that are in similar situations, and certainly just fiscal difficulties are not cause for a challenge to accreditation. I would say that we need to find the way to put the best face on how we are aggressively attempting to deal with our situation as possible. You discussed vertical cuts. There's also a question of if you continue a horizontal cutting process, how many individual programs could lose accreditation? I will tell you that challenge is real. It's real as of last year, and this situation will not improve that. So what we have to do is we have to focus resources on critical programs, high-need programs, high-quality programs. Preserving that core of excellence, I believe, will be a message that says our campus is dealing with this. We might not have a future at the size we are now, But what we can do is, using the process that's laid out and using the goodwill of you in this room, envision a smaller, high-quality future that leaves our university stronger and able to come out with a more purposeful sense of its mission and commitment to this region than we have had in the last 2 years, where we simply made cuts wherever we found them. So I think it's up to us to become more directed, methodical, and deliberate in our approach. And I believe that that message will be well received by our accreditors. I also will tell you, through that, we will attempt to maintain positions, and we will attempt to maintain the quality of the key programs that are here, and that has to be a good message for those people who've worked so hard to get those programs where they are today. That's my best answer right now. I do believe there will be challenges. I don't believe any accreditation visit is escaped without being dinged. I also think that you and the other good folks working to create a solid accreditation visit have done a phenomenal job. And I do think all of us in this audience, for those of you who didn't have to work the accreditation issue, it is one of the most onerous tasks in any university. It's an all-hands-on-deck drill, and I will ask all of you to make sure you're ready for that visit as we gear up, and it is coming in April. So thank you for your efforts, and I commit that we'll do everything in our power to make sure that that's a smooth visit.
I think this is another one of those horns of the dilemma deal. We cannot continue to lose budget and serve the number of students we're serving at our institutions in this valley. It can't happen. Secondly, if we are not serving the number of students that we have been serving in the past, I've mentioned to you that I think we put at risk certain populations that are absolutely critical to serve low-income and underrepresented minorities. So, you know, this is where the decisions get as tough as they get, and we will do our best we can. But I think this is one of those situations where, as budgets reduce, this institution, Nevada State College, the College of Southern Nevada, will have to look at the state and say, we appreciate the support, we understand the problem, this is all we can do. We cannot do more than this. I think that's a fair bargain for you, and we understand the problems of the state. But we cannot continue to serve every student who wants higher education in Nevada with, as Dr. Smatresk said, cuts to this institution's budget that are approaching over a third of its budget and in excess of $50 million. You know, do the math. It doesn't work.
We will let you leave here shortly. We appreciate many hours that you do spend in our institution. Regent Schofield has asked if he can say a few words. And by the way, Regent Schofield just came late, which is why we didn't introduce him.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I was born in 1923, and I was a little boy running the streets during the Great Depression. And I ate a lot of beans. My mother baked bread, but we managed to make it through the Great Depression. Then I fought World War II as a fighter pilot, and we would listen to people like Winston Churchill, he gave one of the finest speeches that is most profound and meaningful now, when he gave that 9-word speech to his home school. And it goes like this: you must never give up. Never, 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 never. When I drive the streets of Las Vegas now, it is depressing. It's depressing to see the places closed, up to the vacancies and so on. But we can't let that get us down. We have to stay in there and fight all the way. And one of the greatest admonitions I've ever heard was this, when it goes like this: when the going gets tough, the tough get going. We must be tough if we're going to make through this. We can. We can do it. I'd like to, everybody here, repeat after me. And I want you to sit up and repeat it loud and clear. Every day. Oh, no. Every day. Oh, that's better than that. Every day. In every way. I get better and better. Quitters never win. And winners never quit. Let's go get them, Tigers.
We can always count on Regent Schofield, a genuine hero, to put things into perspective for us. And so in closing, I will tell you, by the way, you'll all be going pretty soon, and he said when the going gets tough, the tough get going, and since you're going, I know you're all tough. And I don't want a philosophy professor to correct my logic there. We need a number. We will have a plan that needs all of your support, and we will communicate that plan to you and ask for your support for that plan. I don't think any of us can imagine that the state's going to turn its back on higher education and leave our students in the cold. But we can't sit idly by and wait for that to happen. We have to take action. And I believe that despite the cuts that we've endured, it's our duty and our responsibility as leaders, and you're all leaders of this community, to find our way into a future that's better. No matter what happens with this budget problem, we will work together to get the best that we can out of it. But we can't meet this challenge unless we're all together. And I will tell you, I felt more than ever that this campus, this community, is coming together, that it cares, and that it's family. And I will give you my commitment to do the best I can for our UNLV family. And I know our regents, our administration, our students, and I know our chancellor will all give you that same commitment. And so with that, I thank you very much. And Dan, I thank you very much for coming today. Your heartfelt words mean a lot in this tough time.